We talked a little bit earlier on the last panel about the ecosystem, bearing sort of the burden being distributed across the ecosystem, right? And you guys are interesting because you've got publishers that, the supply side that plugs in direct, and you've obviously got the buy side plugging in direct. I mean, where does that leave you as far as the insertion of value and assurance that you need to provide as a platform? Is that daunting, or is it an opportunity? Like, what are the optics there?
It's an opportunity. I mean, we tell advertisers, if you buy through us, we take the burden of any fraudulent inventory, anything you buy that isn't what you think it is, we're going to take care of it. So a couple ways that we do that. First of all, we give you reporting at the site level. So you always see what you bought, and if the performance for a particular site is bad, you can turn it on, you can turn it off. We've been leading the way in terms of the identification of botnets. So this isn't an issue that we're responding to. In a way, we're creating the issue. We found these botnets, we published them. So we went out in the quiet period. We were in registration for an IPO. You're not supposed to do press. We thought this was important. So we went out and we published a list of sites that were essentially kind of affected. They were primarily driven by non-human traffic. And then we went back, and any clients that bought a significant inventory or a significant number of impressions on the sites, which was very few, we gave them their money back. So we take the burden on ourselves. Along with Tal and Brightroll, we've tried to move forward the video viewability conversation, and I think we have. We're at a point now where we're all talking about the same thing, which is a lot better than where we were a year ago. So if you buy through our software, we take on the burden for you.
I want to talk about that because I'm very interested in the conversation. I mean, there was a couple parts of this that interest me, but one is the impact this has on the trajectory of dollars shifting from direct to automated in some form, right? And I'm putting you in the automated bucket.
Yeah.
So let's take the lens of the supply side, right, of a publisher. I mean, does this, if the reality is that in a direct buy situation, the cost of assurance is going to be bore by them, does this make platforms like yours a much better solution because it's turnkey? They just direct their buying to a preferred, demand side platform. Does that solve the problem for them?
So a couple things. Programmatic and direct buying can be the same thing. Increasingly, advertisers are using our software to automate their direct buys. You heard Ari with GroupM say it. We're part of their tech stack. They're doing their own deals, and they integrate those deals into the pipes. And we do the ad serving, media buying,
right,
frequency capping, et cetera. I think what all of this does is it helps legitimate publishers show the value of their inventory and charge more for it. So this is going to end up being a really good conversation for the supply side, because if they're legitimate actors, their inventory is going to be more viewable. It's going to be more on target. They're going to have a lower percentage of non-human traffic.
Right.
So this is a good thing for everybody involved, except the bad guys.
See, I think one of the reasons that that I get hung up is, I mean, I spend a lot of time sort of thinking about long form super premium video, right? I think you call it super premium in your schema, and those deals are sold integrated, right? They're sold with television sort of as the lion's share of a buy. There's no need to bear the incremental cost of automating that delivery and that execution, and quite often it's just sort of done and then you see a report, right?
That's changing though. See,
okay.
What's happening increasingly is the upfront buy happens,
yep,
and then the parties talk and they integrate their tech. And you integrate the advertiser's tech with the sell side's tech, the publisher's tech. And it tends to be pretty simple integration where the advertiser says, we use TubeMogul as our media buying software. The publisher says, great, we use Freewheel. We kind of enable a couple parameters, and that inventory is then available in our software. So while they did the deal directly, now they can use one piece of software to plan their entire buy, to ad serve, to frequency cap across the entire buy, to get one set of reporting.
So I think that's a really important shift in the industry. So, and thank you for making it as simple to understand. I think that's a really important shift in the industry, and the reason I asked the question is because there is a lot of confusion around the eventual impact of automation, right? And specifically as it relates to fraud, whether or not, because automation is so often associated with buying tonnage or reach, right? And specifically ad networks and exchanges.
Yep.
So it sounds like there's sort of a divergence right here. And I mean, how do we manage that so that everything doesn't get lumped into this kind of race to the bottom?
Well, a couple things. Not everything in exchanges is bad. There's good inventory, okay inventory, bad inventory. I think we bid on about 1% of the ad opportunities we see in exchanges. So there's lots of inventory. We're not having any problems filling our buy.
But Brett, you're a premium platform, so I want to be really clear, right? You guys are playing in that upper tier, right?
We let you buy whatever you want to buy. It's just we help you understand the trade-offs that you're making, and we make it such so that you always get what you're buying, and you have the best metrics available to evaluate and make decisions and iterate.
Okay. So if we look at, let's talk globally for a second. I'm just really interested in this conversation, right? Because the compensation models, if we just talk about, let's stick to video, but overall, the media buying compensation models are so different in the Europe versus the US, et cetera. And when we talk about elimination of inventory and the eventuality of things like this, like it feels not just disruptive from the perspective of workflow and operations, but it feels like the business models of how we do business are going to be affected by this eventually.
I think for us, about a third of our business is actually from outside the US. Mm-hmm. And what we're seeing is if you're an agency or a brand outside the US, you're going to programmatic even faster. And we're not exactly sure why that is. Maybe they're smaller entities, less politics, whereas in the US, our clients often start kind of buying media and then they go to programmatic secondly. And it's the same business model worldwide. It tends to be a transparent percent of spend that's negotiated. So advertisers understand what we're making versus what flows to the publisher, and then tech fees that are negotiated, like a tech fee for ad serving, for example.
Right, but there's a kickback, for lack of a better term, that is a generally accepted practice in other markets, right? And so, I mean, and that is the dominant, top line revenue of many media agencies in Latin America, in Europe. And when all of a sudden you talk about a buy and what that percentage sort of compensation would be back to the agency, and then when in reality you go through the funnel and actually only 30% of inventory was fulfilled.
Got it.
How's that
I didn't
pan
know you
out?
were talking about kickbacks.
I'm sorry, I apologize for not being specific.
I think philosophically, we're always going to do what's best for the end client, which is brands, regardless of who the intermediary is. So when the conversation of kickbacks, come up, we don't engage. Don't do kickbacks, haven't done kickbacks. We've talked about it, but to date, even internationally, we don't engage.
No, and Brett, the reason I asked was not because I was suggesting that you guys play in that space. I'm just saying that the thing about advertising is we've done business a certain way for a really long time, and all this results in us having to do business differently.
Those kickbacks change because what is happening, we're seeing brands get a lot more involved in their media technology
in every
decisions.
market globally?
In every market.
Okay.
Now, it doesn't mean they're taking all these things in-house.
Right.
But increasingly, they're not opposed to signing the contract directly, owning the data in case they change agencies, and then having kind of a master login where they could log in and see what their media agencies across the planet are doing. And it's giving brands a lot more control and transparency. It's such that I think that rebate or kickback model goes away over time.